everyone to our Warrior 321 monthly awareness meeting. My name is Angel Camanzuli. I have been part of the organization for going on 5 years. I have Scott Buckley here in the front. He has been part of the organization not much less time than me. And then we have Alyssa Joler over here on the side. She was our first intern. And you're going to get to hear from both of them tonight. So has everybody had a chance to get signed in? Either click it or write it. Whichever one you want to do. If you want to write it because you're afraid to click it, I get it. It's fine. It's no problem. We're still clicking. Okay. I want to tell you real quick, because we have a lot of new faces in the room. Thank you so much for being here, all of you. I appreciate it. You've taken time out of your day, a Monday at that, and we've got food and everything. We wanted to be considerate that this is dinner time for a lot of people, so we wanted to make sure that your stomachs aren't louder than the people that are talking with a microphone. But I do want to tell you that the heart of Warrior 321, we are a faith-forward organization. Now, we are not political, and we are not a religious organization. But I will tell you, in the event that some of you are new and you don't know, the 321 actually stands for 3 nails, 2 boards, 1 Savior. So the fight that we are fighting here in the here and now, very, very real fights. We're going to hear about some of that from our local law enforcement tonight. But it is also very spiritual in nature. And so in the event that you didn't know, the heart of Warrior 321, we are Christ-focused, and we want to see everyone saved. Everyone. And so that said, I would like to invite up Pastor Jack. I'd like for you to pray us in. Thank you.
And no one is more wanting to do good in this subject than the Lord. I believe that. Father, we thank you tonight for every person that's taken the time out of their life to be here. We pray, Father, for an effective spirit to work through this group, that we can make a difference, that some child or some adult will not suffer some of the tragedies that take place in our world. But Lord, tonight that we will have ears to hear what it is we need to learn, and let us take it to heart. And we give you the glory and the honor and the praise in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. All right. So y'all are going to have to work with me with this microphone. I'd like to think that I don't need it, but we are filming on Facebook Live and otherwise, so I'm going to have to hold on to this. Okay. Let's move right along. Okay, so at this time, there's a couple of people in the room that I'd like to honor, and one of them is our food sponsor. His name is Rob Wood. He is the only other person I know in this area that is as tall as my husband. Rob, if you would come up for a moment, please. Rob has Wood & Sons Tax and Accounting. And I've never seen somebody so excited to talk to the IRS than this guy. Rob, for just a moment. Now, just so y'all know, I give no heads up. So everything that happened, well, not everything that happens here, but this part of it is impromptu. When I asked Rob if he wanted to be a food sponsor, he jumped at a yes to be able to be part of this. You've come to a meeting before, so I wanted to just give you a couple of minutes. Tell us about your business, but tell us specifically why you wanted to be a sponsor. You got to come over here so everybody can see you.
Oh, okay. Hello. I guess why I wanted to be a sponsor is a great organization, and the biggest thing is a community, right? It's a lot of stuff we really don't know that actually happens. So yeah, that's what I really like with Warrior 321. I'll just say accountants are good at tax. They're not good at food allocations. So if you see that was just a little bit. What I like to do is I like to fight the IRS and the state of Florida.
Not you though, sir.
No, just it's a federal thing. Yeah, it's just a federal thing. Basically, what I believe is that the government can be inherently evil, and that's the absolute truth. I've seen the government completely screw up a lot of stuff for people.
Talk about taxes.
And that's about taxes. So. Sorry, Facebook. So, yeah, basically work nationwide, take clients nationwide. I do in-person appointments from California to Michigan to New York. down to here to Texas. So basically, I'm kind of like the working man's accountant that actually cares about people. So, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Rob. All right. So, next thing that's up is it's something that we talk about every time we get together, whether it is our action committee that meets the third Monday of every month, or here at our awareness meetings. We've only ever touched on it before, but we're actually going to do a little micro workshop. So everybody take out your phone. Take out your phone and hold it up. Perfect. Wave it in the air. All right. Hi. All right. So you can scan that QR code, or a couple of the tables have an FDLE website QR code there, if for some reason you're having any technical difficulties here. And we're going to learn something new. For some of you it's not, but for most of you it very well might be. There's a thing that is extremely important, which is, at Warrior we like to call it, know thy neighbor. Especially if you're a mom, dad, grandparent, foster parent, caregiver, otherwise, it's important that you know your surroundings as best you can. And before we get into this, I want to tell you, the whole point and purpose of this little exercise is just so you have a better awareness of where you live and other addresses that are important to you. So we're getting ready to get into that. All right. Has everybody got it up on the phone? Everybody? Norton's nod? Yes, okay. All right, so this is what you should be looking at. You're going to have an offender search over here. That's if you know the name of the person specifically. And then we've got our neighborhood search. We're going to focus on the neighborhood search. So what I want you to do is put in your own home address. Once you've got your address in, over here on the far right, it's going to say radius. There's a drop down. I want you to choose 1/4 of a mile. That's going to be the very first choice. Now, while y'all are doing that, I took it upon myself to pull up Win the Day Foundation, because here we are. Luckily, there are none within 1/4 of a mile of this facility, which I was like, hey, that's awesome news, right?
They used to live here, we got rid of it.
Very happy to hear that. Now, who has got theirs pulled up 1/4 of a mile? Okay. What do you see? You see little houses? So let me show you the key over here, right over here. So you got your search location. The red circle is going to be the area in which you're searching, which should be 1/4 of a mile from the address that you put in, okay? So if you're seeing a house, if it's a blue house, that is a sexual offender. If it is a red house, it is a sexual predator. There might be some transient people. They do not have a fixed address. And so the general location that they're in, which is tracked by law enforcement, has the same color code. So if it is a blue tint that you see, you're getting ready to see one on the screen here, that is a transient offender, meaning they have no fixed address. And if it's a red tint, that means they are a transient predator. Now we have our special guest speaker tonight will be able to give you more specifics on what separates a sexual offender from a sexual predator. I don't want to speak into the legalese of some of those things. But, so that's for identifiers. Now there's also one other one. It is a purple house. That is multiple offenders. That is correct. So there are times where they all bunk up. I don't know what the rules are on that. I just know how to identify them in my search history here. Does anybody see a purple house on theirs? Anybody? Okay. All right, so next I did a 1/2 mile. Now, from here, now we have 2 within a 1/2 mile. Sorry, sir. No. All right. Now, luckily, there are two houses, so that, and I say that because any kind of sexual offense specifically against children is heinous. It's heinous. But we do have two that are a half a mile from here. Now, what if I wanted to go from this view, so I wanted to see more specifically, like, who are they? Okay? All right. Now, the next one I did, by the way, was a 1 mile. 1 mile from this address, we actually have 9. And that also includes, on the outskirts of our circle, is someone that is transient, who lives literally a mile from here. So, I want to see a little bit more specifically. You know, this is a good visual. You know, you've got a home base, you've got the ability to identify what is close to you. But if you were to go on your phone and hit show list, because right now we're on list map, but if you hit the show list, then you are going to see that. It should be in descending order, starting with the one that is the closest to the address that you put in, and then descending down. I'm going to give you all the opportunity to look on your phones and see what you can see.
With his new haircut.
No. You're grounded from talking.
I didn't even have any caffeine. I don't understand.
So we have view flyer. On the flyer, you're able to see if they have tattoos, where are they, what are they, the vehicles that they drive. Listen, there's a lot of information about this type of offender. Why is it that somebody that they can spend 20 years robbing banks, but they get out of jail and they've done their time, and you're not going to find information as robust as what is on a sexual offender flyer? The reason why is because the likelihood of reoffense is extremely high. Extremely high. Some experts that I have talked to, which it kind of shook me a little bit, they said it was almost guaranteed. Almost guaranteed. Now, I do have Special Agent Heiser over here. Thank you very much for being able to join us. If at any time I say something that is not quite right, I please, full permission to say, I have something I want to add. Okay? So, there's a reason why these are the offenders that we're able to track after they get out of jail. A lot of folks are like, you know what, this is a bunch of crap. They did their time. You know, leave them alone. Well, I'm not saying that when you go on here and you're able to identify people in your neighborhood that you should go to their door. Correct me if I'm wrong. That would not really be the right thing to do. However, if that's an area that you walk at night because you're a night owl like me, and you know that there's a predator or a sexual offender that's in your walking radius, are you maybe going to consider taking a different route? Maybe. Do I think they're going to come out of their house and like do something to you? No, I don't. But know thy neighbor. Make sure that you do. Does anyone have any questions about this? Does anybody have anything on their screen that they saw that's concerning? I don't know how I only see 3 hands. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, this might probably be for you. So someone might will say absconded.
Uh-huh.
Does that mean they're wanted? So basically, if I were to see one, it would be a 911 call. Yes.
Correct. Absconded means they took off. And they there's a warrant for their arrest.
More than likely. Yeah.
More than likely. Anybody else? I saw a hand over here. Yes, ma'am.
We found out that a neighbor who recently moved into the neighborhood had a record, and he was an offender, but there were 3 buses that stopped, like, at the corner, and he was like 2 houses in.
A school bus?
Yeah.
He was that close to a school bus stop? Okay.
Yeah, so we went to the school a couple of times and said, this is the situation, could you consider moving the bus, and they did.
Yeah, okay. That's good. That's good. So what she had said is that they had an offender move into their neighborhood, and he was 2 to 3 stops down from where the bus route picks up the kids. They went to a school board, I'm assuming, and requested that the stop be moved, and they did. It is. You know, in HOA situations, I've had some other people, I've seen some things online, People are big mad because, they found out that a sex offender has moved into their HOA. That is something that I would definitely bring up at a meeting. If you're in an HOA, but you're not going to the HOA meetings, shame on you. You should be going. Because if something like this is happening, then your voice as a homeowner should matter, right? But it's not gonna matter if you stay at your house and you don't tell anyone, other than getting on Facebook and just posting how upset you are. That doesn't count. Yes, ma'am?
Is there an amount of distance they need to be from school?
So from what I understand, that does have to do with the offense that they were charged with. And I'm going to defer to the experts in the room to be able to speak more directly to that.
It just depends on what they were charged with, what their sanctions are, because when the judge convicts them, there's certain sanctions that they have to abide by, and that may be one of them, but the problem is, like, now there's more legislation coming through. You're gonna talk about the community pools, so it's generally like 1,000 feet. If they have a sanction, it's 1,000 feet.
Yeah. Which is roughly a quarter of a mile? Roughly? 20th of a mile? Like a fifth?
Yeah.
Something like that? Yeah. So, okay, and we are going to touch on the new laws here with Alyssa here soon. Does anybody have any questions about things that they have seen on their phone, on your phones? Yes, ma'am.
Well, I had one that showed up, I thought was my house.
Oh, gosh.
I went across it now, and it shows it's a vacant house, probably from flooding, from rain, but this guy is supposedly living there. How is that for not paying taxes and everything else, unless it's a vacant?
So you're saying that the house across the street from you is vacant, but he's showing that he's registered as living there on the app?
That's, yeah, the administration shows that it's a vacant residential home,
Huh.
but it's across the canal, so unless it's legal, but it's just
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah, it might be a squatter. I don't know what the rules are for when they register. I know that they have a very short window of time to register once they relocate. And again, I'm going to defer more specific answers to law enforcement here in the room tonight. But if I were living at your house and that was my circumstance, I would be concerned about it, especially if the house is vacant, especially if it's that. So, anybody else have anything? So everybody understand the key. Now, here's the thing. After we leave here tonight, I'm going to give you some homework. I want you to go home and I want you to put in other addresses that matter to you. Your child's school, your grandkids' school. Now, granted, bear in mind that this is for the state of Florida. This is not a federal. So if your kids live in Idaho, man, I hope they got something in place. But I want you to put in other addresses. I want you to think about it. Your church. I'm going to tell you, and a lot of pastors get upset to hear this, and I'm not saying it to be mean to churches. I love my church. I love my church. But where there are children, there are predators. There are pedophiles. It is a guarantee. And listen, what we see on the screen, they're the ones that have been caught. There's plenty that have not been caught. So these awareness meetings are built to raise your awareness of the world around you. When you go to Walmart, the dollar store, your neighbor's barbecue, wherever it is that you go, your sense of awareness is heightened because we're talking about it. And my hope is that we're not just talking about it here. You're going home and you're talking about it with your spouse or significant other that did not come with you tonight. You're like, dang it, you really missed a good meeting. I learned this and I learned this. And did you know that 3 doors down? Oh my God, we have somebody that lives here. These are things that are good for you to be talking about in your own household. Even with your children. Even with your children. That can be a sticky topic. But I'm going to tell you, you would rather have that conversation with your kids than somebody else having that conversation with your kids that might give them a very different narrative. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. Okay. All right. That one is mine. Next up, I would like to bring Scott Buckley. Scott owns Stone Point Technologies. He is our IT guy for all things IT. And he's going to be talking about some things tonight that I didn't even think about, honestly. And this is going to come up a couple times in the future now that you've got me thinking about it. So, all right, take it away, Scott.
If I can make people think I have done my job. So Evening, everybody. She said I'm Scott, own Stone Point Technology Partners, and I usually will speak on technology and IT topics and how they affect human trafficking. So they'd asked me to talk about tracking devices. There's really 3 types of trackers that are used in general and specifically by human traffickers. The first of those is going to be tracking apps. Now these are apps that are installed on a mobile phone. A lot of times, sometimes during the grooming or the recruitment phase of trafficking, somebody will give them a gift of a phone. Say, hey, here's a gift for you. I always, you're important to me. I want us to always be able to talk to each other. And they'll give them a phone, unbeknownst to them, that has a tracking app on it. Life 360 is by far the most common tracking app that's out there. It is used all the time by millions of legitimate users for keeping track of family and friends and loved ones. Unfortunately, like most other things with technology, it's just a tool. It's good and it's bad. It depends on how it's used. But the tracking apps, they're good and they're bad. So they're a lot easier than some of the other ones to be able to identify, because if you can search in your phone, look for apps that you don't recognize, and look in your phone for apps that are using location permission that normally you wouldn't think that they would be looking for your location. And they're easy to uninstall, because you can almost always uninstall an app from your phone. They are, some like the Apple Find My is installed on pretty much every new iPhone that comes out by default. But most of the time, unless your phone is locked by a parent or something like that, you have permissions on your phone to go in and disable whatever you need to disable. The other 2 that they're usually using are actually tracking devices. And these are things like your Apple AirTags. So we've got Bluetooth devices, which, this is actually built for an Android, but it's the same as an Apple AirTag. And the way these work is they're Bluetooth devices. So when you first set them up, it learns who its owner is. When it is away from its owner, it will make a Bluetooth connection to any available device. And all of your cell phones are running either Android, Google's Find My Hub, or they're running the Apple Find My, unless you have disabled it. And what it does is that device will make a Bluetooth connection to the phone, and then the phone will report into Google or to Apple, hey, I found serial number XYZ at this location. So that allows them to make them very small. As you can see how small this one is, and they make them smaller than this. They're very small. They have an exceptionally long battery life because they're using Bluetooth. However, and they usually have no subscription to them. So it's a buy it once and use it wherever you want. However, because it is dependent upon those other devices to send its information in, if it gets away from everything for a while, it's useless. So it has to make a Bluetooth connection to a phone in order to send that information out to the centralized reporting. So if you stick it out, I've got a bag of sports equipment that's got some fairly pricey stuff in it. I've got one of those in the liner a bit, just in case I leave it somewhere I can find it. But if it's in the middle of a field, you're not going to be able to find it. Now, when you came in up where all the stuff is up front, all the paperwork, there's some flyers up there that I made up that will show you how to go in, whether it's an Android or an iPhone, how to go into your device and make sure that you have unknown trackers notifications turned on. So that if you are near one of these long enough, if it is following you around, if somebody goes and drops it in your purse or drops it in your car, eventually your phone will realize, hey, this thing has been with me a long time, and it will actually give you a notification through your phone. The other thing you can do is you can go into that same place in your phone where you enable that, and usually it's on by default. But you can go in there and you can run an active scan for any Bluetooth tracking device. And all the instructions are right on that sheet. So, like I said, real long battery life. The other thing with those is it only gives you a point in time. So it won't tell you, it won't draw you a big map overlay and say this is all the places this tracker has been. It is a split-second point in time of this is where it was the last time it checked in and when that time was. Now you get into the other one, which is the actual, what most of us think about when we think about trackers, which is GPS trackers. So this is a small one, and they make them all the way up like this. This is what most of us are probably thinking of. These are the magnetic base. They walk by the car, they stick it up underneath the wheel well, you don't even know it's there. It has its own GPS antenna, it has its own cellular antenna. So it talks back out. It is a completely self-contained unit that will give you, now, because it is self-contained and because it has its own cell, they are all subscription based. And having a subscription on is important because that gives, if there's a subscription, somebody's paying for that subscription. If they find one, that's another tool that law enforcement has to go and find out who put it there. But they will show both point in time, this is where it is right now, but also historical data. If you have ever had a geo tracker, like my dog's got one, a tracker collar, same thing. Same device. Same way they work. So it will show real time and it will show historical data, so you can go back over. That's what one of these things that makes these really dangerous is I can put this under a car and you can go back a month later and look at it and see everywhere that vehicle has gone in the last month, so you can detect patterns. Where are they going? What kind of places do they frequent? So if you're in that recruitment stage, you can, and you see, and the traffickers see somebody that they want to recruit, they can get a lot of information about them by learning their habits just by following one of these trackers around. A lot of times they've got the magnetic bases. The downside to these are they either make them really, they do make them really small. This one's small, but it's got a battery life of about a week. That one's got a battery life of about a year. So they really beholden to the battery because they have their own Wi-Fi, or their own cellular signal. They have their own GPS, so it does create a lot more power. Now, whereas with the Bluetooth trackers, you can go in with your phone and scan for them. With the GPS trackers, they actually make scanners, sniffers that look for those cell signals. They are commercially available. There's 100 of them out there on Amazon. If you're concerned, pick one up, check the reviews on it because the quality of them can be all over the place. But you just walk around and just wand your vehicle, your house, whatever it is, and they will sniff out those low RF frequency signals that it is using to communicate and identify there's something there. Regardless of what kind of tracker, if you find one of these things, regardless of what kind it is, do not stop in the other end of the parking lot and try and pull it off of your car. Drive to the local police station, go inside, because they may be sitting there waiting for you to pull over, and they may have stuck it someplace obvious that you would see it. Go to a safe place, notify law enforcement. Law enforcement can usually track these things to at least some extent. And really, like I said, I'll put these back over there to take a look at them later. Pick up a copy of that sheet that's over there. If you have any other questions about it, let us know. My information is just Scott@warrior321.org.
All right, thanks, Scott. Holy smokes, I'm really glad that you actually said to go Go to the police station if you see some. First of all, if you see a tracker and you didn't put it on there, that's a problem. That implicates a lot of things. You might have a spouse that doesn't trust you. That brings on more talks. And you should have them. But if your spouse doesn't know anything about it and they're telling the truth, going to law enforcement and having them remove it is going to be your best stop to do that. Because if you wouldn't have said that, Scott, I'd be like, I'd rip that thing off and I'd chuck it right in the water. They might be behind me by 2 cars, and then I get terry-tated in the grass, and they put me in the trunk. I say that tongue-in-cheek, but not really. Not really. This is a beautiful world and it's a wild world at the same time, and so that's why we have these meetings. So it gets us thinking about things that we don't typically and normally think about. Okay, thank you very much, Scott, for that. Next up, we have Alyssa. Alyssa had, like I said, she was our very first intern, and her task was to follow a lot of the things that were happening legislatively. And so after she graduated from St. Leo, she decided that Warrior is still part of her heart. So she has opted to remain with us, and now she is going to be giving us monthly updates with the legislative stuff. And so how many of y'all know about the 100+ bills that were passed and added July 1st? It was like 15 minutes ago. Well, she's going to talk about a couple of them that apply very, very much to this topic. So come on over, Alyssa.
All you have to do is that.
Just hit the Facebook.
Maybe. You can try. Real quick, before she gets started, if you wanted to see all of those bills, just all of them, feel free to click on the QR code. It is a lot of reading, maybe for the bathroom, or instead of scrolling on Facebook, educate yourself on what the new Florida state laws are. All right, Alyssa, thank you.
Just want to say thank you again to everybody for coming out to the meeting. Yeah. Okay. So today I'm going to be going over a couple of bills that are related to human trafficking this year. So each legislation, they have their votes on bills, and then now it goes into effect every July 1st. So I just wanted to go over a few of them that I think are pretty important to go over, just because we do go over a lot of bills that have been passed, but again, these ones pertain to us specifically. So first is the child pornography terminology. So it was sponsored by Jessica Baker, and then we have a couple of them co-sponsoring it. The text that they put on there was child pornography terminology replaces the term child pornography with the term child sexual abuse material. So what does this mean? This means that we changed the term to child sexual abuse material. CSAM is what we call it for short, meaning that when we have it termed as child pornography, that is giving it that it is the consent of the child, which a child can't consent to being filmed while they're having sex or anything along those lines. That's unacceptable. The consent of age is 18 and older. So when you look at that as a child and you're saying, oh, we have some child pornography on you, that makes it feel that they did something wrong. That's not fair to a survivor for everything to be against them. So this is not something that they chose. It can't be something that they chose as they're a minor. But on top of that, we are giving them the opportunity to show that this is not okay. And it also shows to the predator, if they were to go and find this, they're not saying, okay, let me go watch some child porn. No, it's child sexual abuse. Sexual abuse, I want to put the emphasis on, because it is not their choice. Does anyone have any questions on that one?
Hold the microphone up a little closer.
Okay. So the second one we have is dangerous crimes. Obviously this does not pertain just to human trafficking, but it does to an extent. So it was sponsored by Sam Greco and a few others. It requires court to remand a person who pleads guilty or nolo contendere, meaning no contest. So if they're found guilty of this dangerous crime in custody. So some examples might be, human trafficking, aggravated assault, kidnapping, sexual battery, stalking, domestic violence, etc. There's so many different things on there. But what I wanted to highlight is that it adds digital child exploitation and computer pornography offenses to the dangerous crimes list, which is great. Now, what does this mean? Now, when they're found guilty, there's no bond. That doesn't mean once they're found guilty, then they're going to be put behind bars to where they can't continue to offend or to go out into the society and continue to do anything to anybody else. So I think that this is a great thing to highlight just because it wasn't on there, but now they are recognizing the digital crimes against children to be on the dangerous crimes list. Any more questions? So this one is the sexual offenses that was put in. It was by Bernie Jacques. And again, I apologize if I'm pronouncing any names wrong. Just want to say that real quick. So it is a very, very long text that I don't expect everybody to understand. So I'm not going to go around and just read all this text. I just wanted to highlight a few things. So it's increasing mandatory minimum sentencing for certain crimes. So for a perfect example, it's increasing penalties for possession of a childlike sex doll. I didn't know that existed, to be honest with you. But I think that's pretty disgusting. I mean, we all know what a sex doll is, but now putting it as a childlike sex doll and people are purchasing this, I think that it is pretty disgusting. So that has been added into the increased penalties, and it also has increased penalties for generating CSAM or child sexual abuse material. This also includes through AI. I know we've talked about AI a lot, and people are generating these different forms of child sexual abuse material. So the fact that they are generating this and we are increasing the crimes, it's just showing to perpetrators that we cannot continue to do this. And it also, I know it did increase on there, but it's just not as significant if you are sending it to other people as well. If you put it in your possession and then now you're sending it to other people. So that is another thing as well. And then we have the sexual offenders and sexual predators. This one was by Stan McLean. And this means that sexual predators, which Angel did go over, not sex offenders. So I just wanted to preface that. Sexual predators cannot live within 1,000 feet of a public pool. Also, when you do the math on that, it's about 333 yards, or I like to do it in football fields. That's a little over 3 football fields of a public pool. This also allows for law enforcement to do warrantless arrests if a law enforcement officer has probable cause that the person has committed a specific offense. So this is something that I think should have been in the legislation a long time ago. Why are we allowing somebody like this to be around a pool? But this is also amazing that we have added this, because now children can go to a public pool and not have to worry about getting filmed or being looked at disgusting. I think we've all had that one instance wherever we were at a pool or a beach, etc. And now we can, if they've been caught, is also important to think about too.
Would Anderson Park be considered?
I don't know Anderson Park, I'm not
They have
very
a
familiar.
splash pad now. I don't know if that, yeah,
It would not. So maybe that is something that we can think about to suggest to add to the bill. We can always.
It's anywhere where children are gonna be, I mean, it's.
Correct. So again, we're making strides. This is not perfect. Nothing is ever going to be perfect, but things like this are great to talk about because then they could be brought up to legislation to continue to add things and create a safer space for our children. The last one that I have is Internet Crimes Against Children's Program. This one isn't doing anything regarding laws, but this is adding an operation to go after child exploitation online. So I wanted to highlight it because I think that it's super important that we are going against those crimes that are going online, since it is the biggest place where human trafficking is existing and exploitation for children. So I just wanted to highlight it really quick, just because I think that it is great that we are, as a state, recognizing that the internet has become such a big issue and putting together law enforcement and different sting operations to go after these predators. And thank you very much. Does anyone have any questions? Thank you.
Great job, Alyssa. Thank you. You know, we can think of this in one of two ways. We can get hyper-focused on it shouldn't have to be like this, where, you know, they should just be doing the right thing for our kids. And we would be right. But that is not the reasonable expectation in the world in which we live. So the other frame of thinking is, thank God that bills like this are getting passed. Bills like this are getting passed because people are writing them and fighting for them. Writing them and fighting for them. I want to be in the camp of people that see a problem and let's start focusing on what we can do about fixing that problem reasonably, making it to where it's not just a talking point, but it's actually like a talking point in here. No, it needs to be a talking point with law enforcement. So they're equipped to do their job a lot easier than it has been up until the point that these bills become alive. Can we all agree on that? All right. Thank you. Listen, these are heavy meetings, and I really, really appreciate y'all being here. It's an honor to be able to put these things on, but I'm really appreciative that you guys are engaged, you're paying attention, you're asking questions. It gives a lot of hope for our community that once these meetings are over, that we don't just go home and life just resumes. I remember when I first came and I listened to Alan Wilkett speak, and I left that meeting mad as hell. You can ask my husband. I was so mad, like how can this be? How did we get here? Well, organizations like Warrior 321 are becoming more and more part of the solution than just another talking head. So thank you for being in the room and being part of this. Now, I am very excited about our guest speaker tonight. I am a huge fan of law enforcement. I have family that is in law enforcement and that has been. They served in our military. But when it comes to our backyard, here we are in Hernando County, I care very much about the information that we learn. Okay, all the different. I'm friends with Special Agent Heiser over here. He gives me a lot of really great information. But I've been wanting to have one of our own stand up here and speak about what's actually happening in Hernando County. So I would like to welcome up here to the microphone Lieutenant Michael O'Brien. Yes, I want to get this right. He is Hernando County Sheriff's Office Criminal Investigations Division and Major Cases Section.
There you go.
Right? All right. You got a lot more talking to do.
It's okay.
All right.
Pull up my presentation.
Yes. Okay. Do we want to just leave it like this, or do you want to, how do you want to
You'd probably do the,
present?
hit the slideshow.
Okay.
Do it again. From the beginning.
I don't know if you
Move
just
over.
Yep, you can just swipe.
Just swipe.
Yep,
Oh,
there you
okay,
go.
cool. All right, so I appreciate everybody having me here. I'm just going to try to, I move around a little bit, so I just want to make sure I don't run out of cord here. So I try to answer questions before they're asked, but I know that I'm going to get a lot of questions, and I want to make sure that I answer all the questions that I can. If it's about human trafficking, CSAM, I have some material in here about that, and then any questions in general you have about law enforcement in your community, I can hopefully answer. If not, I will get an answer for you. I have business cards. I'll be willing to meet with people after the presentation. So just a little bit about me. I got hired at the Sheriff's Office in 2006. Swipe over. It's not working. There we go. I'll squeeze the arrow. I got hired by the Sheriff's Office in April 2006, just like everybody else, just about everybody else in law enforcement, local law enforcement. You start out on patrol. Okay, patrol is where you get your backbone and you learn how to be a cop. I spent some time working in patrol, and then I transferred to vice narcotics. I did vice narcotics for about 6.5 years.
From there, during that time, about 3 years of that time, I was a task force officer of the Drug Enforcement Administration, the Tampa field office. So I was able to work, and I had the privilege of working cases took me pretty much around the country. We had some major drug traffickers that lived in our area, mostly down south of here a little bit more, but they would take us to Atlanta, they took us to the Carolinas, they took us to Virginia. I worked a case that originated, and we followed a car all the way out in Texas. We used one of the trackers that Mr. Buckley was talking about. We had a legal process to do it, so it was okay. But we followed a car that went all the way from Spring Hill, Florida, went all the way through Texas, actually New Mexico, went through New Mexico, went across the border, came back up, and then we had it stopped in New Mexico, and we got $50,000 in cash out of that car. So I worked some pretty good cases. A lot of the drug cases that we worked back in those days, they could have been, but human trafficking really wasn't like a thing. It was like if you're part of a drug trafficking organization, then you were a drug trafficker. Now it's getting looked into a little more deep to see if, well, maybe that person was forced to be into that organization somehow, some way. And they're benefiting by money, but they're also getting their family held hostage in Mexico if they don't perform for that drug trafficking organization. So a lot of those things are starting to work themselves out, and they're starting to dive into those a little bit more nowadays. After I left narcotics, I went and spent some time working as a district detective. So I worked a lot of property crimes cases, burglaries, high dollar thefts, pawn cases, and then I went to major case as a detective. And that was probably, for about a year and a half that I did that before I got promoted, that was probably the best experience I had, because I got to work these cases head on and got to see live victims that had just gone through some of the worst times in their life, and I was there to help them out and at least bring some justice to them, or at least the best I could in a lot of those cases, and help hold people accountable with the prosecution and everything like that, but help hold those offenders accountable for what they did to these people, these kids. I got promoted in 2019 as a sergeant. I went kind of back through where I had been, working patrol, district detectives, and vice narcotics. I got promoted lieutenant in 2023 and went back to patrol. I spent a year working with schools and school resource officer unit, which was really eye-opening. I got to meet some really good people that work in our school system. And then about a year ago, I got transferred back to major case lieutenant. So our agency, they like to move supervisors around, give us some different experiences, different places, so we don't really get stagnant too long. And that's the way our administration kind of keeps us fresh, and they keep us moving around. They shuffle the cards a lot and move supervisors around a lot. So that's kind of the inner workings of my career. I'm also an instructor with their law enforcement academy. I teach report writing, crimes against persons, and then I'll fill in with some instructors, like maybe they need an instructor on the fly, maybe somebody has an emergency or something can't make it, and I'll come in. I've taught drugs, the drug portion of it, and some like aspects of patrol. So those are my kind of expertise as to where I am and what I've done. Any questions thus far? Okay, so human trafficking, at least on the state level, is governed by Florida Statute 787.06. Who was at the bandshell event that was a few months ago? Like maybe 6, 7, 8 months ago or so. Okay, so I never looked at this, but when I got up there, before I got up to that office, I did some homework, and I really never read the human trafficking statute. And it's funny, but the first words in the human trafficking statute, if you look up 787.06, it says that human trafficking is a modern day form of slavery. It says that in our law book.
Wow.
I felt that pretty compelling. You don't think about it like that, because it's just, but it is. You know, if you really break down what human trafficking is, it's somebody directing somebody else to do something, and they're benefiting from it. That's what the layman's term of that is. There's a lot of legalese and a lot of things that are in that statute, and honestly, it's not that easy to prove. In order to prove a human trafficking case, and the prosecutor in the room can tell me and talk about this, in order to prove a human trafficking case, you need a lot of cooperation from a lot of people. You probably need a lot of evidence. You need a lot of, short of going up on a wiretap, where you're listening to people's conversations, you're reading text messages that are coming through social media or through the cell phone companies. It's not an easy thing to prove. you have to prove almost like a hierarchy, like a RICO case, and it's just a different form. A RICO case, you have everybody you have a criminal organization, and I've done about 3 of them, where you have a criminal organization and everybody's on the same page, right? Everybody's committing criminal acts in furtherance of an organization. Human trafficking, you have one person or a group of people pulling the strings, and you have a bunch of people down here on the bottom that probably don't want to do what they're doing. So that's really the difference between an organized criminal element on that end, a RICO case, than in a human trafficking organization. The penalties for human trafficking, they all depend. It all depends on what they have them doing. The ages, if it's drugs, if it's labor, if it's sex, if it's something, there's different. And I could be here all day going through all of the different elements, but they vary from a second-degree felony all the way up to a capital offense, which is the death penalty. So if it's a certain human trafficking case that meets that standard, they are subject to getting the death penalty. Okay? And obviously it's going to depend on injuries inflicted upon the victim and, again, ages. But I'm going to go through some cases that we've had recently in the last 10 years. So everybody wants to know, like, how is this topic, how is it affecting our community? Okay, and I know there's some people, who's here from another county other than Hernando? Okay, I can't speak to anything that happened in Pasco or Pinellas or Hillsborough or Citrus County. I know that they have mechanisms to receive reports on that, and I'm going to go over that in a little bit. But I can only speak to what we've done here. Okay, so since 2016, there have been 22 arrests for human trafficking-based offenses here in Hernando County. Okay, over the course of 10 years, that's not that many. Okay, and I will be honest with that. 10 of those arrests were tied to one investigation alone. Okay, and that was a case from 2017, I believe. We had a victim. I don't want to go too much into it because I kind of want to save it for somebody that can speak to it a little bit better than I can. That was prior to me going into major case. I was in property crimes at the time, but I'm going to try and get somebody here that can maybe talk about that case a little bit better. But just to give you a snapshot on that, it was a young girl that was getting trafficked by her mother. And the mother was taking in requests from Johns to basically exploit her for sex. And that's how it went. And I'll get into it in a second, but the tip came in through the Department of Children and Families in NCMEC, but the Department of Children and Families and the Sheriff's Office worked closely on that case. They set up an undercover operation where they had an undercover pose as a John and trying to get that kid to a safe location. Once they were able to get the kid to a safe location, then they were able to debrief her. They exposed that, hey, we're the cops. And then they debriefed her, got her to the services that she needed, and then that's how they essentially opened up the can of worms on that case. So, but again, I don't want to spill the beans too much on that because I know there's other people that have worked that case that I can probably see if I can get to another meeting later on that can go into that in a little more detail. But our human trafficking tips will come in through NCMEC. They will come in through the Department of Children and Families. We get what's called a hotline notification on any child abuse case, whether it's physical abuse, sexual abuse, mental abuse, neglect, and human trafficking. So we will get a teletype message coming down from Tallahassee. Let's say that somebody in here was to call in a report. Okay, they have some things that they want to report that a child's in danger somewhere. And then they'll call the hotline or do an online submission, and Tallahassee will get that report. They'll generate a case, the Department of Children and Families case, and then they will send it to the local departments, Sheriff's Office, PD, wherever the jurisdiction lies, to investigate it. And sometimes we'll get cases that will meet that threshold, or if it comes in through NCMEC, then it'd be like what's called a priority one. Priority ones will get investigated like that. So we'll jump on it. It's not like we're going to sit on it and triage it and wait and maybe we'll get to it tomorrow. No, it doesn't matter what time of day, we're going to come out on it and get to work on it right away. So that's generally how our tips come in. But we have had people that have just picked up the phone and said, hey, this is what's going on. And we've come out and investigated that. Or we'll have a victim that will just come forward and say, hey, I've been abused. Or that victim will open up to a parent or a loved one, say, hey, this is what's going on. We have one right now that we're working, that just came in over the weekend that we're actively working on. We just got a warrant for the guy today, and we're working on it, trying to locate him. So these tips and these cases, they come in through a multitude of different ways. And there's really no one way we funnel them in, but they all come to us. And we have to work out every kink that we can and make a great case for the state attorney so that way they can do their job. And that's our goal. But as far as human trafficking, that is really the statistics that I have. And again, most of the stats that I have of those arrests, those 22 arrests, were, I think all of them, if I'm not mistaken, were all for sex-related human trafficking offenses. I have worked some cases where I had a RICO case once where it maybe could have been human trafficking, but it just depended on the situation. I had a person that was basically recruiting drug addicts and it's a little bit a lot smaller scale, but recruiting drug addicts to go into Lowe's and Home Depot and basically steal a high dollar tool off the shelf, go right to the return counter and start returning high dollar equipment. And so I was generating thousands of dollars for this guy in Lowe's gift cards, Home Depot gift cards, cash. When they finally found out what was going on, then they were $7,000, $8,000 to $10,000 in the hole. And then we were able to backtrack it. There was over 50 transactions that were involved. And then when you start going back and interviewing the people that were actually going in there doing the returns, they're like, no, he was standing behind me when I was doing it, organizing the whole thing. And you can see him in the video, just kind of standing off to the side at the return counter. Now, is that human trafficking? No. You know, these people, these drug addicts, obviously getting paid in drugs, and they're getting something in return. Who in here would say that's human trafficking?
Very possibly, yeah.
Who in here would say, no, they're just getting drugs? It's fair to say that if that's the way it is. It's kind of up for interpretation, right? Like, what's the motive? What can the prosecution? What's the best deal they can get? Best sentence they can get? Which one are we going to charge, and what's going to fit? We felt that it was better just to go, hey, we're just going to go with an organized or a RICO act on him, and that's what we felt was best to get the best sentence we could for him. So it's just an example. I mean, these things are happening in every county. It doesn't matter if you're in an urban area, you're in a rural area. I would like to think that we're kind of somewhere in the middle in Hernando. We're not too small, but we're not too big. So these things are happening. All the drug arrests that we post on Facebook, there's a hierarchy there. You know, and Special Agent in the room, he can talk to you all about that too, is how it goes internationally. But every person in the drug game has a boss. There's a higher person always. And in every case, every drug case, it's an international case. Okay, cocaine is not manufactured in the United States. Okay, it has to get here from somewhere. So every case, it doesn't matter if you had a gram of cocaine, that gram of cocaine can eventually be backtraced to an international case. So it's just something to think about. Again, not every case involving drugs or thefts or even an isolated sex case that we work is human trafficking, but you never know. If they're filming it and they're distributing it to other people, you know, either internationally or locally, it could be considered trafficking. So it's just something we have to take into consideration and never really just try to scrape the surface and be satisfied with that. We always try to dig deeper into our cases and get the most out of them we can. Any questions thus far? No? Okay. All right. So what are we doing to help? What are we doing to deter this? Like, what are we doing to proactively prevent, enforce, and try to deter all this activity? So if you look up in the Hernando County ordinances, you can search for sexually oriented businesses. And I don't want to take any of the steam out of the people that are going to speak next week, but I'm just going to touch on it really quick. People who live in Hernando County, did you ever notice the fact that we don't have any sexually oriented businesses here?
Yeah.
Like strip clubs.
Strip clubs.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay?
Thank God.
We don't have them, okay?
Massage parlors.
There's an ordinance against that. You can't do it. Massage parlors, I'll touch on that in a second. But, you know, we don't have the nude dancing going on. And I'll tell you right now, if there was a complaint that was going on, let's say it was isolated and maybe there was a business that was allowing it, trust me, I have been on the receiving end where we get a tip in and they send undercovers in there to figure it out. I've had to walk into bars and make sure that they weren't doing it. So just know that those ordinances are in place to pretty much deter that type of activity. And they have in there, they're very blunt in that ordinances. They're saying that we know that there's studies out there that we know that these businesses and this type of activity will bring a criminal element to our county, and they don't want it. So, but the problem is, you go 2 miles down the road, and then that's where, and again, some of our frequent flyers are working in some of those establishments down there. It is what it is. You know, so we can't prevent that, but we can at least do our part. And the 20 years that I've been with the sheriff's office, we've never had anybody walk into a county commission meeting and say, "Hey, I want these businesses back. I want." I haven't heard it yet. I'm not sure. I have not heard of that. So, yeah. So massage parlors. And somebody said it. Here's the thing. If they're a massage parlor, they have a license to do it, then it is what it is. Are they checked? Yes, they are checked. If we get information or we have some undercover, operations that we've done in the past where we've verified some are good, some are in compliance, some aren't. And then what we'll do is we'll identify the person that made the proposition as prostitution, right? Let's call for what it is. And then we'll pull that person aside and say, are you working for anybody? We're looking for that HT, that human trafficking element. If they're being forced to do it, then that's one thing. Then we'll investigate that further. We'll get on phones, we'll get on their social media, we'll see if, how they're communicating. If it's in another language, we'll find somebody that speaks that language or that can translate it for us, and we'll go and look into it. If it's not, then it's not. If it's prostitution, then it's a misdemeanor, and that's all it is. And we'll make sure that they're held accountable the best we can. But obviously, misdemeanors, you can only go so far. The sweepstakes places. Okay, everybody familiar with those places? Okay. So the sweepstakes places, they're, you'll say, oh, you have a chance to win, whatever, and they have the fish tables and their gambling establishments. They have a criminal element there too. They're not as prevalent as they used to be. Let's just put it that way. We've cracked on them. People, we've caught some. We caught some flack in the media for it a little bit. Like, oh, you're picking off the low-hanging fruit.
So what?
They're just misdemeanors. There's just people trying to go have fun and go gamble. That's fine. Okay, it is what it is. But we have had robberies at those places. We've had robberies that have been unreported. There's every time we've gone and done a search warrant there, we always encounter people that are convicted felons. They have drugs in their pocket. People have armed security at the doors. I wonder why. Okay, so but those type of businesses, they will bring a criminal element to your area. So if we can just stop them from even popping up or getting in a heavy operation, then we've done a little bit of we've done what we needed to do. So that's maybe get a peek behind the curtain as to why we've done those certain operations, because we just don't want the problems that other places have. Do we have problems? Sure. We have about 220,000 people live in this county. You're going to have problems. Things are going to pop up. We want to make sure we keep it as under control as we possibly can. Okay? And obviously, part of our proactive approach, doing things like this. Coming out, speaking to community awareness groups, to HOAs. We have our community policing unit that does a lot of that work. So they are very versed in meeting with groups, knowing the needs of certain community organizations, churches, things like that. And they do a lot of presentations. They work a lot of weekends, and they work very hard to kind of spread what we're capable of doing and what we can do to help them out. But the biggest thing I think that we do to prevent human trafficking, any kind of sexual offender from reoffending, is our spot check program. Anybody ever heard of that? Okay. So SPOT is sexual predator and offender tracking. That's just an acronym. Law enforcement, we use acronyms all the time. Just how we stay sane, so we don't have to say as much. But that's our bread and butter when it comes to sex offenders. So currently, in where I work, I'm in the major case section. I have a civilian investigator or civilian administrative assistant. I'll get into her in a minute. I have our victim advocate, which I'll probably have come into a future meeting. Those are my 2 civilians that I have working for me. I have 4 sergeants and about 25-ish detectives that work with me directly. And how it's kind of split up is we have a homicide unit. They do a lot of follow-ups on suspicious deaths, overdoses, things like that, try to tie in those cases. And if we do get a homicide, and somebody's probably thinking, how many homicides have you had this year? We've had 3, okay? And they've all been solved and we're good. We've made arrests on all 3 of those. Last year we had 7. So relatively, you know, if I knew somebody was gonna ask me, that's why I'm just gonna come out with the answers. So our homicide unit, we have our violent crimes unit who gets in pretty much 75% of their cases are all sex cases. They will take on the robberies. Anytime there's a shooting that happens, but there's no dead body, they will investigate that case. Our economic crimes unit, I have 5 detectives that are carrying a lot of cases. Fraud is taken off. People really aren't stealing things anymore. They're just hiding behind the computer and stealing things. So we have a lot of, and it's not just here. It is prevalent all over the place. So there's a lot of fraud going on, but those guys are all working hard. We just did a good operation where we've taken 13 people into custody on a warrant roundup, and hopefully we've starting to see the decline on those cases. But again, you're dealing with people that are scamming, you know, overseas and out of state. So it's a difficult place to work if you're trying to be proactive. You got to do a lot of follow-up with banks and legal process, things like that. And I have our special victims unit. Our special victims unit they'll dive into our internet crimes against children cases. So our CSAM, anytime we get any report through NCMEC, they're the ones that get that first and they go out and take care of it. So all of you see the arrest for possession of child pornography. If we put something out on Facebook, that's the team that's doing it. All right. Within that unit, I have a detective that just does nothing but sex offenders. All he does. He's our go-to person. I'm sure you've probably seen his name out there, Detective Marcacci.
Yes.
Very, very aggressive. Does not give these people any leeway whatsoever. Like, he does not care. If they step out of line one bit, off to jail they go. Okay, and I'm fully supportive of that. So right now, we have a total of 500, this was as of the other day, 538 sexual offenders and predators that live here in Hernando County. So as of the 2nd. Yeah. Out of our population, yeah, that's a decent amount, but there are other communities that have a higher ratio than we do. I don't have the breakdown of every community in here, but I just recently did some work on that to try to figure out like where we are as far as detective to offenders, and we're kind of in the middle, like we're within ratio. But I do have plans to try to increase that ratio a little bit. We're going to try and reallocate some resources and try to get that up a little bit. So our spot check program. So everybody in the sheriff's office has a role in this spot check program. And it really all starts with patrol. Okay? So how it works is the flyers that you all saw, that's in a program called SOPS. Okay? FDLE has that program, sexual offender predator system, that a sex offender can go in and update their own information. So let's say that they just bought a car, right? They can put the tag number, the VIN number, the year, make, and model of that car into their own profile. They get like an account, and they just upload their information. So here, they can self-report their cars. Okay, they have to by law. They have a car, a vessel, obviously their house, but they can self-report that information. Makes it easier on us, makes it easier on them. They don't have to drive to the office and go, here's my tag and title, you know, it's all self-reported. So it makes it easier on everybody. But we have a responsibility to go out and verify it. Because do these people tell the truth all the time?
No.
No, okay, so we have a responsibility and duty to verify that. So that's where our spot check program comes in. So patrol, we have a running list of people. We get out ahead of it. So really they only have to be verified every year. So sexual offender, they have to re-report their information every year, re-register every year annually. We go check them every 3 months. Okay, so we personally go out to their house or where they say they're living. Let's say they're transient, live in the woods, and there's plenty of people that have that. We go out and we will make contact with them in person every 3 months. And let's say that they're dodging us for whatever reason, they don't know what's going on. If patrol can't get a hold of them, you know, every little bit after that 3 months, then they're on an overdue spot check. And then that's when it gets forwarded back to my guy, Marcachi, and Marcachi will get on. Okay, and we'll figure out why they're either dodging us. Maybe they're not home. Sometimes I've seen it to where, you know, they have jobs, right? Working during the day, working at night, whatever. And patrol just kind of goes out when they can. And then we found it to where, hey, patrol's only going during the day, but they're home at night, but nobody's checking them at night. So we've seen it to where, like, well, I will send somebody out at night, hey, I'm home at night, okay, no harm, no foul, right? But if they're dodging us, there's something going on. And that's where we'll catch them where maybe they didn't register a car, or maybe they're saying they're living here, but then they're living at their girlfriend's house across town. And they don't want to report that address because they don't want her to get you know, to get funny about it. She doesn't want her address to be on a registry, so we've seen that happen before. Or maybe they're just absconded, and we have had that happen, and we get on that quick. So I just want to kind of give you, you know, a snapshot of it. So let's say that an offender or a predator, and I'll get into the difference in a second, has 48 hours. By the time they leave incarceration, so let's say they get out of prison, and they have 48 hours to claim a home and go register with that law enforcement agency where they're saying they're residing, or else, where do they go?
Right back in jail.
They go back, okay? So, and that's being extended to career offenders too, which career offender is pretty much somebody that's a habitual felony offender that's not a sex offender. So let's say that they have a really, really bad criminal history, they can be designated as a career offender, and then now, like that House bill that you just brought up, Jessica Baker, she's the one leading the charge on that. They just put that into effect, where now career offenders are subject to the same registration requirements that sexual offenders are now too. So it kind of leveled the playing field. Yeah, we want to keep tabs on the sex offenders, but we also want to keep tabs on the people that are really terrorizing our community in different ways. So now we have the ability to do that too. So they have to report their current residential address per Florida statute regulations, either annually or biannually, and that's going to depend on whether they're an offender or a predator. Predators twice a year, offenders once a year. Okay? So have you seen I know you shared the flyers that we put out, right? Where they say a sexual predator is being moved from here to there. That's only for predators. So that's a difference too. Offender, we're not going to do that too. Predator, every time they change addresses or say they're moving from one place to the other, we throw out a flyer on social media, say, hey, everybody in the area, be aware this person's moving in your neighborhood. Okay? So that way, we have to do that per statute. We have to let the public know somehow, some way. I'm sure back in the day it was a newspaper or something along those lines. Now it's just easier to put out something on social media and everybody sees it right then and there. So the difference between a predator and offender, it's only how the court designates them. So it depends on the offense, it depends on the judge that's issuing the sentence. I've worked some cases where, you know, I thought they were going to be labeled as a predator once we completed the case, and it was like, no, registered sexual offender, and then they get 5 years in prison or whatever the case may be. Or I've had it to where the opposite, where I'm like, there's no way this person's going to be a predator, and then nope, sexual predator, lifetime sexual offender probation once they get out of prison, and so it just depends. It depends on your local leaders, your judges, that whether they accept plea agreements or not, that may be a little weak. That's where your local elections are really going to pay dividends. As far as the judicial system, by the way. Any questions thus far on our spot check program? Did I cover it all right? Yep.
Do you guys label the judges?
What do you mean?
So, for example, the judges that let things slide versus the ones that don't? Should that be public knowledge?
Unfortunately, we're not able to do that. I can't do that. I can't call out a judge and let them know that. But
this group could.
Hey, I mean, you do what you want to do. But we have. I honestly, our county, we have a great working relationship with all of our judges. We have no judges that I would say that would be on my ban list to not use if I didn't have to use them. And we need, it depended, we have 2 criminal felony judges, but the other judges that are in our Hernando County office or the courthouse, we need them too, because if we have an after hours incident, we need to get a search warrant signed, we need an arrest warrant signed, we really don't have anybody that we can't pick up the phone and call and then have us refuse to meet with us or give us what we need. Obviously, they have to be fair. They have to play, down the middle. A judge is more or less a referee in a courtroom. But if our probable cause is there, then they'll grant us what we need. So I really, I know every one of our judges, and I think highly of all of them. So they're all very good. Any other questions? Okay. All right. So, I just want to touch on a couple other things. So, we're obviously responsible for following up on violations committed by active sexual offenders and predators. So, how does that look? Like, what's a typical day at our office when that happens? It's kind of, I wouldn't say frantic, but like there's urgency there. You want to make sure that you're not overreacting, and that's a term that we don't want to use in law enforcement. We don't want that to happen because then you don't really think clearly. Have to be able to think clearly and make good decisions. But we also have to think like we have to have a sense of urgency. And that's something I've learned as like I've gone up, and through the rest of my career is like there's certain times where you have to have a sense of urgency. And like Angel was saying, like, do I have statistics on people who reoffend? No. But I have a poster I'm going to show you in a minute of somebody that did. And I'll tell you about that. But that's why I have that detective. Anytime we get a case involving a sex offender that's being accused of a crime, one way or the other, generally it'll go to him. Anytime there's a law in place right now, it got changed last year or year before, I don't remember, but if a sexual offender or predator commits a crime, doesn't matter what it is, the only exception is a traffic offense. So like let's say they have a suspended license and they get arrested for driving a license suspended. Anything other than Florida State Statute 316, any other offense, there's no bond until first appearance. Doesn't matter if they stole a stick of bubble gum from Walmart. Okay, they get no bond until first appearance. Now, can a judge grant a bond the next day? Yes, okay. And depending on the severity of the offense, taking into consideration their history, their likelihood to show up for court and not fail to appear, that has to be taken into consideration as well. They may give them a bond, or they'll just say, "Hey, you can sit in there until you're done." I mean, it just depends. There's a lot of factors that are taken into consideration. I encourage you to kind of see, and we do this a lot where I work because I like to see what happens. Our judges, we have 2 first appearance judges, okay, in this county, and they put all their first appearance videos up on YouTube. So you can look at who was arrested the night before or day before. So let's say today, we have probably 15 people that went to jail for various offenses, in this county. So our first appearance judges will have them in first appearance the next morning, and you'll get to watch it on video. Sometimes it's pretty entertaining. Sometimes it's boring, but a lot of times if you have somebody that has a long criminal history, they'll read it off. Don't read it off. They're like, yep. The judge will go, okay, state attorney, do you have anything to add for the criminal history? Well, yeah, Judge, we have a long list of criminal offenses dating back to 1989, and they'll go through their whole criminal history. So, look, a lot of these judges, they don't want people. They live here too, okay? And that's the mindset that they have. They got to take into consideration, like, is this person a danger to my community? You know, we do what we need to do, but we, obviously need a judge to follow up and do that part too. So, so that's one way that we can, if they commit a minor offense or any offense, they get no bond until first appearance, other than a traffic violation. We'll work with other law enforcement agencies. We work very, very closely with FDLE. I'd say over the last 3 to 4, maybe 5 years, we see FDLE up here a lot, and that's a good thing. You have people at the state level that are helping us, and they run up here to work with us because we have an aggressive mentality towards this topic, and they want to help us. You know, getting usually in other cases, getting the state and the federal government to come up here is a little harder because, they just want to work locally or in Tampa and do their thing. But I'm telling you, FDLE will run up here to help us with anything we need. So it's been really good. It's been really, really good to see. We do work with the feds at some point, but mostly FDLE, other local agencies. We've had Hillsborough County Sheriffs Office come up here and shadow us on an operation that we did last year, just to learn how we did it. And you would think a larger agency like that, they would kind of write the book on these things. No, they want to see how Hernando County did it. So it was kind of eye-opening to see that that was when I first came in a major case as a lieutenant. I'm going to skip over the FDLE op, but basically what we'll do is we would usually do this around Halloween time, and it was getting done maybe once, twice a year at best, where the Florida Department of Corrections, they have two components. They have obviously their prisons and their corrections officers that work in the prisons, but they also have the other side where they have supervised release. So they have probation officers. So when you're a sex offender and you get put on sex offender probation, you have certain things that you have to abide by, certain rules, okay? And probation searches and law enforcement searches are completely different things. Okay, I don't know if you know that. So the authority that a probation officer has is a lot different than mine. Okay, I'll give you an example. So let's say that a probationer, whether it's a sex offender or maybe somebody that's on felony probation, has a clause in their probation that says they have to consent to search. Okay? I can't just go pull them outside and go, hey, I'm going to search everything you have. But a probation officer, they have the ability, hey, let's go through your phone. Let's go through this, let's go through that, if that clause is in their terms of probation. Okay? So I don't have the authority to do that. I can't just go, hey, let me stand over your shoulder and look. No, that has to be a completely different thing. That's a probation thing. If they find something, then we can step in, and okay, now that you found something, that's when we kind of step in and do what we need to do. So we'll do those operations every so often. We usually do them around Halloween time. We will get people that we know that are on sexual offender probation. We'll make sure that they don't have Halloween decorations up. We'll make sure that they're not having a candy bowl out there and saying, hey kids, come on. Some of the things I thought was kind of creative. I went out to do the checks one year before it was a major case, and there was a sex offender that wanted no part of anybody coming to his house. Like, he literally parked his truck up against his front door so nobody came to his front door. Okay, it's pretty creative. I appreciate him doing that. So that way, nobody would come to his house. But, unfortunately, we have had people that have kind of crossed the line. So, this was one we did last month. So, since I went into as a lieutenant, I want to go, look, we need to do this more often. Like, we need to at least do this a few more times a year. And granted, it's not like I can do it every week. It's a lot of resources, a lot of people. I have to bring in people from different parts of the agency to help us with this. But we bring in people that work in our community policing units. Patrol helps us. K-9 will help us. Our Special Victims Unit. So I'll go over a couple of these people. This one here, Mr. Marrero, he was a probation officer.
What?
He was a probation officer, yes. He was a probation officer. I don't get into the case, but he committed a sexual battery against somebody. Not as a probation officer, I think it was like off duty, but he's a sexual predator.
Wow. Oh, predator.
Yeah, because the ones in the red are at the bottom are sexual predators. Mr. Payne is a sexual predator. They went ahead and did a check on his house, and I don't know if it was unbeknownst to him, but the law changed recently to where if you're a sexual predator, you cannot be in possession of any performance-enhancing drugs, like Viagra. And he's willingly, here's my Viagra. Okay, well, let's take the Viagra and off to jail you go.
Wow.
So he went to jail for that. Mr. Bofill, we had a case with him. He lived over in Spring Hill. There was a call out in the middle of the night. Basically, he had two different, he had a girlfriend and a fiance, and again, it was like a triangle, and he committed a sexual battery on one of them. And then we ended up, the case kind of went through. He got some probation, sex offender probation, and he violated it, and we went to check on him. And I think Colin Fee was on that list that you just pulled up, that he lived not too far from here. Yeah, he's right down the road. But all these people were actually on probation at the time. We were just arrested. This was last month. This was in over 2 days that we got all these people. And obviously we didn't check just them. We checked 3 times that, and then there were others that were in compliance. And the one thing I tell like deputies or even newer people that are coming through, that a lot of these sex offenders, they will pretend to they'll be nice.
Yeah.
They'll be nice. You go to their house, knock on the door. Hey, how you doing? I need your ID. Anything new to report? Oh yeah, come on. They'll invite you in. They'll invite you in for cookies and milk, and they'll be nice, And but because they just want you to go away. They want you to go and take the information you need, and then so they can go about their business. I tell them, like, don't forget what these people did to land them on this list.
Yes.
So just something kind of is an eye opener. I didn't realize before I did this, what we were faced with out there. I didn't pay attention to it. Obviously now I have to, but it's just something that if you're interested and you want to get it, more involved, this is kind of work we're doing, and we're going to continue to do it. It's holding these people accountable is very important. This is more than quality of life. This is safety.
Yeah.
So that's and we have plans to do more of this. So stay tuned. But that's really, that's a snapshot into what we do on this topic on a daily basis, because we are doing spot checks on a daily basis. They're happening every day. There's probably somebody on a spot check right now, verifying an address or vehicles or anything like that. So does anybody have any questions? Yes, ma'am.
The little locator map, when I did my significant other's address, there was a juvenile sexual offender.
Yeah.
And then there was an offender.
Yeah.
Is that the obvious explanation?
Yeah.
There was a child involved?
No, a juvenile sex offender is actually a juvenile defendant, juvenile suspect.
Okay.
So, but yeah, just because they're a sex offender doesn't mean that they preyed on a kid. It could have been like Anthony Bofill. That person was an adult. So if it's an adult adult suspect, adult victim, they're still labeled as a sexual offender. So it's not always a kid involved. More often than not, it is, but it's not always like that case. But yeah, just the juvenile sex offender just means that when they were convicted, they were juvenile. And I can expound upon that a little bit more, but I'll answer a couple more.
What is the percentage of women or credit?
There's not very many.
Not many?
No.
They're on the rise, though.
No, it's rotten. We just arrested one 2 days ago, or 3 days ago. Sorry, female, Yeah, female adult. There aren't very many. I don't know the exact percentage, but I would say the overwhelming majority are male. I'd say out of 500 and whatever the number I gave, I'd say maybe 20, if that. Probably more, probably a little more than that, but overwhelmingly male, yeah.
So, as far as social media goes, is there, isn't there a rule in place or something in place where they can't have a social media account, or if they do, they have to report it?
Yeah, it depends on their sanctions. So that's called the internet identifier. So if they have a Roblox account, Facebook, Instagram, whatever, Snapchat, they have to report that if they have social media. There's sometimes where if they're on probation that they can't have any internet at all. And if they're surfing the internet on a phone, then they go to jail. But yeah, that's a lot of those guys up there were arrested for failing to report internet identifiers.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
great.
I'd say about half of them, yeah. So we get a lot of those. It's a very common arrest if we're arresting them for that. Anything else? So I'm sorry, did you have something? I thought you raised your hand. Just to go back on the juvenile thing. So the juvenile system has a diversion program for sexual offenders. It's called a Walker Plan. So I don't know if that particular person was put on a Walker Plan. Usually it's like a teen court for juvenile sex offenders. But obviously they're more serious and they have to undergo counseling and things like that. But it's more or less a juvenile. I don't know if that one person qualified for that. It may have been a more serious offense. But I've had a 17-year-old that I worked a case on, and he was abusing his two nieces that were 4 or 5 years old. And he's doing 25 years right now. And he got convicted as an adult. The state filed on him as an adult and took care of that. Anybody else have anything? Yep.
When it comes to sexual predators and offenders, how long are they on that list for?
Forever.
Forever?
Yeah,
Even
unless
if it's an offender?
Yeah, unless a judge or somebody signs a motion taking them off.
Okay, same thing for a juvenile offender? Or is there?
It depends on the sanctions. So if they're convicted as a juvenile, there may be something that says, hey, at a certain age, maybe they'll take them off. But it's a lot of times for the person I just talked about, who's tried as an adult, he actually has lifetime probation after he's out of prison. So he'll never be taken off. Yep.
Are all juvenile offenders who are convicted put on that list where it's public information? Or
Yeah.
are there- Okay.
Yep.
So the fact that they're juvenile does not give them any privacy?
No. If we want to, people will say stuff about us, and we're putting juveniles' names on there. Oh, they're a juvenile. You can't say that. No, there's nothing against public records release that says we can't put a juvenile's name out there.
Even
Us
if
or the
they were-
state, no.
Even if they were tried as a juvenile?
Yes. Yeah, we can do it. Yep.
Can you speak to the Romeo and Juliet situation? I don't know if it's a bill, a law, or what, or if it's not either one.
Oh yeah, we talked about that. So to kind of bring that into perspective, so the age that you can consent to have sex in the state of Florida is 16. However, the Romeo and Juliet law that she's talking about, so let's say a 16-year-old is in a sexual relationship with somebody who's 40. Okay? Technically, that's a crime, it's a felony. It's called an unlawful sex activity with a certain minor. So they can be labeled as a sex offender if convicted. So that is not as serious as a lewd or lascivious battery or a sexual battery, but it's still an offense. The day that they're 15 and they turn 16, that's when it kicks in. If you're 15, then it's completely illegal. They cannot consent to have sex in the state of Florida. So let's say you have two 15-year-olds that do that. Technically, if let's say that it wasn't forced, you have, two 15-year-olds that really are suspects / victims. They offended on one another. So we'll get those. We'll get those cases too. And essentially, a lot of times those work out because neither parent wants to see their kid go to jail. So they end up signing a waiver of prosecution. But we have had people that have been like, no, I want that person to go to jail. Now that will get worked out later on with the state. And like, hey, maybe we might not be able to prosecute this case, but as far as probable cause, I have probable cause of arrest. So it's tricky. But that's what that charge is for.
That's not the way that it's ever been portrayed from the person who gets called out on it. Hey, I saw that you're on the, oh no, it was my girlfriend, I was 19,
Yeah.
She was 17, her dad was a cop, and he prosecuted me.
Yeah, well, they're obviously, we call that minimizing.
Yeah.
You know, and that's, you know, every time we go knock on a door with, let's say that they move in from out of the area, you know, they'll be like, oh, I was wrongfully convicted, you know, it was BS, this and that. Okay, fine. But then you pull up the charging document or the case from out of the area, and it's pretty horrendous.
Yeah.
So you just have to, whatever people are telling you, do your own research. You're probably going to find some skeletons in the closet sometimes.
I just wanted to address the situation that if you see something, say something, because I know people who have been in groups I'm in that were sexually molested by their brother all their lives.
Yep.
And they were so glad when they got married. If you see something strange going on in your neighborhood, report it and have somebody look into it.
Yeah, what's the worst that can happen? We find nothing?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know,
Exactly.
it's
Say
I'd
something.
rather, how am I going to put my head on a pillow if I didn't look into it?
Yeah.
You know? So that's why I'm saying we have a sense of urgency. We have to have urgency.
And
These
just
kind
don't
of
ever
cases.
dismiss it as, oh, well, it's none of my business.
No. And honestly, without the public, we wouldn't be able to solve a lot of cases that, you know, we get tips in, a lot of drug cases, you know, like say, hey, there's a lot of things going on next door, I don't know what's going on, and we start looking into it, and then we get, you know, we start developing enough evidence to get into that house, and there's a lot of drug activity going on in these houses. So you never know. Anything else? All right. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Who learned something tonight that you did not know prior to getting here? Oh my gosh. Me. Goodness gracious. You know, last week I had the opportunity, myself and Carol, we had some training actually for certifications for learning more in depth about human trafficking. And listen, as civilians, there's something significantly different about every single person in this room simply because you're here. You saw this probably on Facebook. Tony Rivera might have invited you. I might have invited you. But either way, or maybe I bullied you into coming. Thank you, Donna. That's okay. I'll take whatever I can get. But you're here, and you're learning something new. Your brain is firing off in ways that it was not doing earlier in your workday or whatever. So there's trainings out there for people that are not in law enforcement. If you're interested in that, I can send you the link. The organization is called LSF, and for the life of me, I cannot think of what that acronym stands for. But we did a 2-day, when I tell you it was intensive, I'm going to tell you I had fanny fatigue. I was so glad when she gave us breaks because I needed to go touch some grass. I needed to smell the air outside of my office. But man, I am so glad that I took it because as a civilian, one of the ladies that actually taught, she says, I really don't like the see something, say something because it's missing something. If you see something, say something, do something. Well, what would the do element be? If there's something sketchy going on, follow that say something through, not to Facebook, not to your neighbor and creating gossip. Call law enforcement. I'm serious. We've got non-emergency lines. If you don't think that that maybe it doesn't warrant a 911 call, you can call the non-emergency line and then the person that you speak to can determine if that needs to be escalated or not. But make the call because you never know. It might be you that saved someone's life because something just was off in aisle 13 at Lowe's. You know? or while you're getting gas at 7-Eleven. Let this room do its work in your mind. Let the information that you're getting be in the forefront of your mind. When you go home and you're looking up other addresses, I want to reiterate to you, I do not encourage anybody to go and investigate people's houses. I'm being very, very serious. But it is still very important for you to know where they live in relation to you. Know thy neighbor. You might be very surprised about the neighbor that you've been having cookouts with for the last 4.5 years. That was the sweetest person, moved here from Oklahoma, used to be a pastor, just didn't want to be a pastor anymore. Just wanted to retire. And the crimes that they have done, you didn't even know. And then that brings on, a lot of feelings. Things like that will make you second guess, do I even have the ability, and I'm saying that because I've been there, do I even have the ability to get a good grip on a good person? And I feel like a sucker. Work through the emotions, still know thy neighbor. Now, are you going to be going back over there for a cookout? Especially if you got kids and they got a pool? No, of course not. Of course not. So, I really want to thank you all for being here. I appreciate it. I appreciate your attention. I appreciate your questions. I want to thank you so much for letting us meet here and the event that y'all have not met this wonderful gentleman. He owns the Kruger Center, Win the Day Foundation. Make sure that you go over and shake his hand. He's a really awesome guy. I want to thank Alyssa and Scott. Thank you very much for taking the time for putting your presentations together. And again, you knocked it out of the park, Lieutenant O'Brien. Thank you so much. We are also going to have the opportunity to have law enforcement with us every month. They are going, so it is wonderful that, we have a great partnership in our community. And this is what we've asked God for, and ask and you receive. And so it is a wonderful thing to be able to have them here with us every month. And it's not because, we're worried about being targeted or anything. They are a wealth of knowledge. And if they're at our disposal, wouldn't you want to be able to ask a question to somebody qualified to give you an actual answer? Right? Okay. So also thank you, Pastor Jack, for praying us in. And thank you to Rob Wood very much for sponsoring the food. Did y'all took the starvation feelings off your belly so you can pay attention? Wonderful. We are going to be meeting next month, the first Monday of every month except for September. That is Labor Day. And so I am going to move that one to the second Monday. So we're, as long as Kruger Center and When the Day is available, we should be, okay, I just got the nod. Yes, we are. So second Monday, I will put that out on social media. You can expect to see the change if you are on our email list. And I send you the calendar invite. So please pay attention to those. Please like, share, comment on our social media. Not because we want to, feel good about engagement. We want the engagement to spur attention to other people that were not in the room, that causes them to think maybe they should come. We also want to have middle school age and high school age kids in this room. We really do. Because sometimes a parent is beating their head against the wall, telling their kid stuff about Roblox, stuff about Instagram, Snapchat, and all these things, and they're like, whatever, mom doesn't know what she's talking about, she's annoying. And then she comes here and she hears somebody else like Nick Mick, who was our presenter last month, talking about the very things that, and now the kid's going to listen, because this is a trained professional. They know what they're talking about. My mom's an idiot. But that lady doesn't, they're not even correlating that the two are saying the same message. So it's important, bring your kids, bring the neighbor's kid, whatever, you have permission. But bring them. I want to have kids in this room, and I want them asking questions if they're willing. But just for them to be able to be here and hear the information. So that concludes this meeting. Thank you again for being here. If on your way out, you just be mindful of your space. If you have garbage, if you could please take that and throw it away. And God bless you all. Thank you so much for being here.